Welcome to A Pint with Seaniebee, coming to you from London. Should be from Dublin, actually, because I'm with one of my oldest friends, a guy I've known since I was 17. We met in college. A lot of you have heard me say I never went to college. I didn't really. I went to a kind of a technical college that did an advertising course for a year, and I went into the class on the first day, and it was full of women, and I was sitting on my own, and a curly-haired guy came in, and he sheepishly sat down beside me and said, "Looks like we're the only two guys in the class." And we became fast friends, and his name is Gary Cohen, welcoming to the Pint with Seaniebee.
Thank you, Sean. We're doing it over 2 glasses of water. We're a shame to our nation.
I know, and again, that's been a bit of a problem. One thing everyone asks me is, are you all getting pissed? And only in about 10% of them have. We will probably get pissed tonight, and we definitely are getting pissed tomorrow.
Deal.
Gary is a guy who is from similar background to me, South County, Dublin, born and bred. His family, I found out from your brother, first lived on my road.
We lived in Shankill, that's right.
No, you lived on Shrewsbury Lawn.
In Shrewsbury Lawn, very early, yeah.
Very early.
Yeah,
I lived on Shrewsbury Lawn.
Did not know that. There you go.
You learn something new on A Pint with Seaniebee. Anyway, Gary also is an ad guy. He worked in the ad business. He's worked in marketing. He's worked in media, and he has set up his own business. He's worked with bands. He's now working with bands in a much more formal capacity. Tell us what you're doing right now.
So at the moment I work for a company called ATC here in London, and ATC manage about 50 artists in total. Nick Cave, PJ Harvey, Faithless, and then we have a live booking division who represent another 200 acts. I'm brand partnerships director, so I'm really there to source and manage artist relationships with brands, and it's become, as you know, a fast growing area. They're one of the first major management companies to bring that function in-house. They wanted to be more proactive.
So it's a product of the collapsing music industry, really, isn't it? You know, artists 20 years ago, apart from maybe the big Michael Jackson Pepsi deals and all that stuff, if you started getting into the grubby world of advertising and brands, it was always a sellout kind of situation, you know.
There was a stigma involved.
There was a stigma involved, but now brands are going, okay, I'm not selling any records, I've got to make money, right?
Yeah, I would look at it slightly differently.
Sorry, that may be a jaundiced
Well,
view.
I would think it's more a product of the collapse of the traditional advertising industry.
Okay. Touché.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, the whole thing about brands is connected passion points.
That sounds like absolute bullshit to me.
It does.
Yeah.
It is bullshit.
Let's start conversations with her.
But essentially, music has become probably where sport was 10 or 15 years ago in terms of its value as a vehicle to connecting with consumers. Yeah. I had an agency say to me the other day, it's all about the thumb stop. You know, well, the thumb stop is essentially when you're flicking through your timeline, right. What is going to make you stop and press play on a piece of content?
Very little,
but music is one of those things if it's done right.
You're starting to see all this horrible, over-dramatic clickbait headlines from shit fucking publications that are click on them and it's like 25 embarrassing photographs that I just delete, I just unfriend or whatever the hell I can do to get rid of them. I mean, you're close to all this. Where do you see it finding a equilibrium with users where we can start not hating the interruptions that we get from advertisers on our devices?
I think there's been a trend more recently for a softer touch where branded and music-related content is in play. And that's right. They should let the music be the hero. Consumers, they're smart enough to figure out. If you put yourself in the position of the fan, it's bringing the fan closer to the artist they love. Consumers are quite happily prepared to be favourably disposed towards brands who do that. The starting point is put yourself in the position of the fan. Don't shout too loud. You've got a wonderful property when you work with an artist.
I mean, you're working with Nick Cave and people like that. I mean, these are really established big artists, using artists in the truest sense of the word. But they could just imagine. I mean, I don't know Nick Cave very well, but I could imagine him eye rolling his way through meetings. Like, does he? Or?
Yeah. Well, we would very rarely look. Someone like Nick it would have to be very specific. So, for example, if it had a social responsibility angle to it.
So like actors that do ads for, you know, they give the money to charity. Like a lot of the people that always ask me, why does George Clooney advertise Nespresso? And I go, well, he probably puts the money into one of his big charities.
Into his tequila that he just sold for £1 billion to Diageo. You know, or something like, we're interested in co-collaboration, where the artist has an input into the product line or the creative look of it. Every artist is different in what they will and won't do, but every clued-in music manager nowadays recognises that brand relationships are probably the second biggest revenue stream after touring.
So the health of the industry that was based on record sales is now based on performance. You know, the big bands are making money by going back out on the road all the time. Little bands are struggling. Even if they break it big, they're still not selling a huge amount of records. But in the past, the big band success has fueled the up-and-coming bands. How does your company or your industry address that issue, that there is still young kids today who want to become rock stars?
I don't think anything has changed from years ago, which is real talent will always shine through. And it's all about the songs. If you've got the songs, of course you need good management and a good team around you to find an audience. But real talent will always shine.
But if you had like 20 million albums sold a year and today, whatever, 2 million or 1 million or so, there still is a problem with people carving a livelihood out. I had Gavin Glass on the show, who you know very well recently, and you know he was just talking about, you know, he still plays O'Brien's every Sunday night to one man and his dog, and the dog is Gavin's. But you know, he's been doing that for 12 years, and he's been eking out a livelihood. He's making money in his recording studio, but it's hard for these.
It's very hard.
You know, I mean, even if you have good songs,
it is very hard. But Gavin is self-managed and self-promoted, and he's one of the hardest working guys I know. Yeah. I mean, look, it's very difficult. There are routes sometimes with emerging artists, funnily enough, where brands can be the vehicle. So, for example, we do a lot of work with Burberry. They have these Burberry acoustic sessions. A video gets uploaded to YouTube. The money is nominal. But they've 17 million fans on Facebook. That's a valuable audience for an artist. So sometimes brands, or certainly the broader issue of licensing for film, TV, is a valuable vehicle.
Which was always there, but
it's always there, but you've got to be organised. You've got to get your music to a sync agency who are the route to film producers, directors, and all that sort of stuff.
I mean, perversely, there's never been a better time to get great music heard. Technology distribution vehicles of YouTube and Spotify and all these things. I mean, you can get your music out there, but there's no real return.
Winning an audience is the tough bit. But you're right. The platform to get it out there has given emerging artists a lot better chance of breaking through.
You and I were in similar, when we left college that time, we both were in Ireland in the 1980s, which was hard to get jobs, and we both got very low-level entry jobs into the ad business, and we kind of followed reasonably similar parallel paths until I buggered off to Singapore. How do you see that time from this part of your life?
I really enjoyed my entry into the world of ad agencies. It was a totally different time.
There was no internet.
There was no internet. We were producing a lot of really great work.
Yeah. Well, above average.
Above average. We were working with great people.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was fun. The desire to do great work creatively was always there. We may not have ended up getting it signed off by the client in a lot of cases, but the desire to do. We worked together with some great creatives. It was a great business. I really enjoyed it. I did get frustrated towards the end of my time in ad agencies with the business in general in Ireland and the way it had gone.
As our friend Shane calls it, the puddle.
Yeah.
If you have big ideas and you have big ambition, it still gets tamped down out of you in Dublin a bit, doesn't it? That'll never work. What do you know? I
actually found that to a large degree when I set up on my own with the Music Brand Partnership Agency. I just felt, and to this day, to be honest, I am a very proud Irishman, but I just felt such a lack of foresight as to what role music could play for brands in Ireland. when I started the business off, all my work was over here in London.
Yeah. So Gary had kind of left the ad business in Ireland around about the time I went, mid-90s, I went off and went to Asia or whatever. Gary stayed at home and actually he set up a company that's not dissimilar from the company that he's working with now, right? I mean,
well, yeah, I was really, the brands were my clients then. Now I've gone more to the artist side, although all my relationships are with brands.
But you had relationships with fun-loving criminals and with Snow Patrol and stuff.
Yeah. My idea was to get to know brands, understand what they were trying to say, who they were targeting, and then find a music solution. Now it's understanding what the artist is all about.
You did about 10 years of that, didn't you?
Yeah, I worked in a great agency called the Larkin Partnership for a man we both know, Martin Larkin, who was a divisive character but a brilliant character. Had a great job, but in 2004 I had always been around bands, managed bands. A lot of my friends were musicians, and I just had this germ of an idea that I wanted to combine two sides. And Martin very kindly set me up with a meeting with Ozzy Kilkenny, who's U2's accountant, and I got his feedback on whether he felt this was a growth area, which he did, and I quit to set up on my own. It literally was moved back in with mum and dad, working out of the garage. But basically was very lucky. I got what you need when you start any business, which is a portfolio of work together pretty quickly. But it was all over here. Slowly but surely the Irish market came on stream and we started to get business, less so from the agencies, to be honest, more from the clients direct. We had a really good 5, 6, 7 years, and that continued up until really the recession hit Ireland, and brands were just doing pure maintenance. Doing anything with music was the last thing they were considering.
I mean, we were still in touch, and I mean, I know you got caught up a little bit in the whole Celtic Tiger crap that was going on in Dublin.
Yeah, I call those the lost years. I mean, essentially what happened was that at the height of it all, I decided to open a bar with some friends, and myself and my brother from New York and 3 other guys opened a bar in Dublin and very quickly opened a second bar around the corner from us. We also had a New York pizza joint. It was an amazing experience, but a big mistake for a couple of reasons. One being that I did take my eye off the ball of my main business and what I really love doing. And 2, that I got caught up in that very hedonistic kind of crazy lifestyle. Drugs, drink, it's your bar, you shut the doors at 1 a.m. and
there's still till 5.
You stay there till 5. Crazy
in Dublin, known as the lock-in.
Indeed.
Of the disappearing beast, but you can still achieve it sometimes.
If I had a pound for every time I fell out onto the quays of Dublin with the sun coming up, but it was.
But like you were in that hole a little bit, but you were still enjoying it. Like thinking back, because it was 15, 20 years ago, and you did fix yourself. But like, did you feel then that it was out of control, or did you just feel riding the roller coaster? It's great.
The thing is, when you're going heavy on anything, you're always in denial.
Yeah.
You're the last.
Denial's a river in Africa.
Yeah, you're the last person. It's fine, and and that's really why I was neglecting my business, because I could still do it, but I wasn't getting up till lunchtime. And it was crazy. And I just had 2 people really close to me, my mum and one of my friends, basically, and my brother from to a degree, to say this has to stop.
I weirdly was hanging out with Nick for a bit of that time as well, because I was in New York, and he was very worried about you, because it was. I hear what you say, and I often I drink a lot, and I mean I swore I wouldn't do drugs, and I pretty much have kept to that up until maybe a little bit recently. It wasn't because I was anti that sort of lifestyle, but I just felt I would get sucked into it because of my personality.
Right.
And I also sort of feel like you still smoke, you drink a lot, and I mean I go off the booze even back in the old days for a month every year. Now I do 2 months every year, just to make sure I never have to give up booze.
Right.
Because I'd hate to have to give up booze, and I wouldn't have a pint with Seaniebee if I gave up booze, even if it was water. But when you did knuckle down, I mean what's interesting is the path of actually having that intervention, or whatever you want to call it, and then realizing and saying to yourself, because at some point you have to say to yourself, right, because you're the only one who can do it. Can you remember how you approached that? And
I can remember exactly what it was. I was struggling to get work. Things were difficult, which again was part of the problem of why you go overboard. I was at home one day after a particularly bad come down, and Paul Newman, the actor, had just died.
Right.
And I was a big fan, and I saw his daughter on TV. She talked about the camps that he set up in the States for kids. I just on a whim felt, okay, I need to start getting my self-esteem back and doing something important.
Yeah.
And the next day I rang Barretstown and explained to them, Barretstown was their camp in Ireland, what I do, and that I'd be interested in doing fundraising gig for them. And that gathered steam very quickly, and Sinead O'Connor agreed to do it, Shane McGowan, and all of a sudden we had a real something magic.
So Paul Newman set up a charity helping children with
cancer,
like they were going to die.
Yeah.
So it was about maybe giving them just these amazing experiences.
Barretstown was the first camp outside America. With childhood cancer now, there is a 90% recovery rate because the medical treatment has come on so much. But look, I did it for very selfish reasons, which was I needed to get my mojo back.
Well, it was a win-win reason.
Yeah, and we took it on. We did it the first year in the Academy. It was 800 people. We did it in the Olympia second year. We took it to New York. We've raised over €500,000 now.
Right.
And I've met a lot of the kids who go to the camp, seen the difference the camp makes. Because these kids spend their whole time in hospital not being a kid. And that's the main problem. They get robbed of their childhood. And it was very humbling.
There'll be a link to Barretstown House on the blurb of this podcast if any of you want to investigate it more and hopefully donate to it. You mentioned Sinead O'Connor. Actually, we're recording this interview a couple of weeks after Sinead O'Connor had her latest very public meltdown on Facebook. We're hoping she's okay. You know, and I have some friends who have got into trouble on booze and other stuff, and there's just this kind of shame of hiding it. And yet, when you want to talk to someone or you have friends, you know, most people I think are prepared. Maybe they can't be that helpful, but they certainly worry. You know, most of Ireland was very worried about Sinead O'Connor, even though she has some mental health issues as well. But you know, the fact that no one is properly looking after her is terribly shameful, and having to dig yourself out of a hole on your own is very difficult. The Irish are a race that everything will be grand, have a cup of tea, and we're not a race of, until maybe recently, of seeing psychotherapists or psychiatrists. So you felt that Barretstown thing was the trigger that really made you feel good about yourself and pushed it. And then you got rid of the business, the restaurants and bars business, did you?
Yeah, we did, which was a good thing.
And that was a victim of the collapse of
the
our
collapse.
Yeah.
And they were badly managed.
Right,
I mean, they could have been it could have been amazing, but actually it was good that it didn't go any further.
Yeah.
I hung on in Ireland for as long as I could. When it's your own business, you're very reluctant to let go. And just as I was about to let go, I got a £1 million contract from Diageo in the States. And that brought me to New York for a year, which was an experience. I kind of used to have a real love affair with that city because I've been going back and forth for 20 years to see my brother. In fact,
A Pint with Seaniebee, every episode that is recorded in New York is sponsored by your brother's bar.
Correct.
Houndstooth and Stitch.
Fine establishments.
Yes.
And living there was a totally different experience. I kind of fell out of love a bit with the city. The work thing we were doing there was tough. You know, I came back from there, and unfortunately I had to leave Ireland. And if I'm totally honest, looking back now, I'm in the wish I'd done it sooner bracket, which is a sad reflection.
Even though I left at 28, I wish I'd done it sooner.
Yeah.
You know, I wish I'd gone 2 or 3 years earlier.
Yeah, I do still find that anything around creative industries and things like that, it can be difficult.
Yeah. To be fair, the Irish industry or whatever, and there's not a lot of money sloshing around because it's a very small population, and we have always been under the shadow of what happens in Britain.
Except creatively, we are a nation of playwrights and poets and musicians, and you talk about Gavin struggling there. Government funding for music is shameful.
Yeah, and they also took away the tax-free status for artists. I mean, Gavin made the observation that it was like the Star Wars thing when the walls are closing in on artists. For a country that has writers and poets and the guy who wrote the greatest book of the 20th century, and we just seem to take that for granted a bit, and we certainly are not encouraging it. Even back to when we were growing up, I think it's...
Yeah, but even if you look at modern Ireland and the music coming out of modern Ireland, and when I was growing up, like I said, I managed bands, and the level of talent was frighteningly good, and it is still to this day. what the government and organisations even like Tourism Ireland do to recognise that potential, to market Ireland in a modern, contemporary way. They don't get it. I remember having 4 or 5 meetings with Tourism Ireland in New York, run by people basically out of touch with contemporary Irish culture.
And yet we've got record numbers of tourists coming, so, and Dublin Airport is clogged. It's not like that we've been forgotten. I think what you're saying is, as an Irish person, could do better, right?
I think so. I think if ever a country needed a dynamic leader, we need one right now.
Yeah. It's positive that we have a 38-year-old Prime Minister now. And,
it is great.
He also happens to be gay, and he also is an immigrant. And his politics are very conservative, but I think he's starting to listen. So you ended up then coming over here, you had a brief job at somewhere, and then you found this company, and you seem really happy now in yourself.
I love it. I absolutely I get on the train in the morning looking forward to go to work, which is something you can't really put a price on when you're enthused about what you do. And
you're a big Brighton fan, and you've got a seagull on your shirt, and the seagulls are...
back in the big boys league for the first time, and I went to the opening game against Man City. But I love London. I found my home here now. I've been here 2 years, and I just love everything about it.
Do you ever think you will go back to Ireland?
No.
Really? Okay.
No, I can say that very definitely.
I've ended up back there for the last 7 months, and it's been interesting. I never expected to be back myself, but it's it's weird.
I'm still in that honeymoon period where I'm just discovering new parts of London every week.
What do you feel is the difference between, say, Dublin and London?
Certainly in business terms, there's just more of an underlying attitude here of let's do great things together. Let's do great work.
I mean, I've spoken to people on the podcast who've been born and bred here, and a few of them have said that a lot of what used to make London great is gone. It's too expensive. You can't live in the centre of the city anymore. It's been completely gentrified. The expression of the artists, all these similar kind of issues. And I'm wondering if it's maybe not about one country or the other, but the fact that capitalism and housing and trendy restaurants. I mean, New York has the same issue, where...
but what New York doesn't have is it doesn't have the history, the level of culture.
I think we're talking about a bastardization of recent history, 50, 60 years. I mean, people in New York would say the place was a better place when there was a body on every street corner, and it was edgy. And I mean, I don't agree with that. I lived in New York for 4 years, and I was happy I was able to walk down the street and not get mugged.
I mean, I think London as well, they do so much with their green spaces, and there's a lot of them. Every park has its own personality, and they do a lot in the parks. I mean, it's personal, but I've always felt like cities should be like women. It should be love at first sight, and that's what ensures.
I get that as well. Whenever I've travelled, I mean, there's cities I've gone to could never live here. It's not necessarily anything sort of from a privilege point of view. It's just a vibe a city gives off you. And what about Brexit, the big B word?
Riddled with confusion. I was delighted to see Jeremy Corbyn say that the rights of all EU citizens would be protected. That was one of the first things he put in his manifesto. He didn't get in. There's still a huge amount of confusion as to what it's actually going to mean for people. I've been here now 2 years. I have a Spanish friend. She's been here 5 and has actually now begun the process of applying for citizenship. I mean, I think I'll be okay.
I may be completely wrong here, but I have a funny feeling the whole thing is going to just peter out. They won't want to lose face because the British hate losing face, but they'll come up with some... It's not as if they have to get rid of their currency. They'll probably have a kind of a Sweden-like relationship with the EU, and it'll be fine.
I mean, look, I grew up with an English mother and an Irish father. We always used to take the piss out of the Brits, basically, and she'd stand up with the Union Jack for the...
Hello, Rainer, if you're listening.
Trooping of the colour, hi, Mum. And we'd all this sort of stuff. This is a great country. I mean, even look at the underground. It's a feat of engineering like nothing else.
No, I mean, my position on the Brexit vote was a lot of the issues that were made issues were just bullshit. I have a very big problem with the EU. I think it's bloated. People say, it prevents war from breaking out. I really did it. It wasn't so fucking hot when Yugoslavia was melting down and people were getting slaughtered there. America had to come in and fix that. It hasn't been great. It's got all these politicians, half of them don't turn up. They're racking up expenses. And also the EU has been a 40-year steward of continued problems and inequality. So when Corbyn comes out with his kind of manifesto about inequality being one of the things that needs to be solved, and I'm not talking about communism, I'm talking about just fucking basically making sure everyone has a roof over their head, access to an education, they don't have to wait too long for health. If I was voting in Ireland, I would have voted stay in because we're too small. But as you said, I think Britain is a mighty country and has been for many years. It's got 65 million people in it. It can do its own thing. And I think it'll be very successful at that. My hope is that the whole palaver will see a reorganized and restructured and more flexible and more nimble and more effective union coming out that can, not take 12 years to hammer out a trade agreement with America or whatever. And maybe there could be something good coming.
I mean, look, it'll be interesting. We are in a new world order in general. Things are changing at such a rapid pace. I recently watched the Putin interviews with Oliver Stone. Amazing. I mean, I'd actually be more comfortable with that guy running the world.
Anyone who hasn't seen them, there'll be a link, but there's Oliver Stone did a amazing 3-part documentary for over 3 years. He just interviewed Putin. What was interesting about Putin was, I'm sure he doesn't get all the labels that are thrown at him for nothing, but he did seem to answer every question, even the ones about gay rights where he's a bit dodgy on and stuff like that. And the most interesting thing was he said, we've been trying not to be the enemy since the collapse of the Cold War, but America wants us to continue to be the enemy for some reason. I can see the
reason is that the amount that America spend on the military and their Secret Service, there has to be a reason to spend that amount of money. There has to be a big bad foe.
We were probably seeing some propaganda from the other side, but it was very interesting to see. I mean, I was just thinking, imagine if Putin was as hot ahead as Trump, we would have had nuclear war by now. He sits there and kind of raises his eyes and he goes, whatever. I mean, I wouldn't like to cross him.
No,
but
he's very measured.
Very interesting documentary. Where do you think the world's going, though? I mean, are you positive or optimistic? Or negative?
That's a big question for a podcast without a pint in front of me. Where is the world going? I mean, I think it's changing rapidly. I would have concerns about the whole power of social media and the creation of disconnect from real world conversations. And I think social media can be a really powerful vehicle used in the right way. And I think it's interesting where that's going to go. But, the human race will always reevaluate and realign themselves.
I was saying to someone who I interviewed just earlier that there's so much shit going on right now. It's almost like something is telling us, okay, how about that? Okay, what about that? Okay, that. At some point, and it doesn't have to necessarily be pitchforks and flaming torches, but at some point, humankind needs to go, okay, fuck it, Etch-a-Sketch, we got to start again. We got to fix fucking all these things once and for all. And actually, it's all pointing to the need for, in my view, a new ism. That you can throw the ills of capitalism, the ills of market being right, the ills of make money and trickle down bullshit economics and stuff like that at the problem. And you can see it being the problem with Russia right now. You can see it being the problem with climate change. You can see it being a problem with Brexit. You can see it being a problem with inequality, with homelessness, with everything. There needs to be some kind of new ism. Last question: what would you say to your the 17-year-old that walked into the Rathmines College?
Amazing we got that degree, considering we spent the whole year in the bookies and the pool.
The amazing thing is it wasn't a degree.
Diploma. The best gift you can give yourself is to find something you love and make that career, because it's the most enduring gift and it will stick with you for life. Look, if you want to be a professional footballer, sometimes it's not going to work out. In everything you do, you get knocks. But find what you're really passionate about and make that your life's pursuit. Of course, there'll be frustrations within it, but be the best version of yourself.
Wise words from my old friend Gary Cohen. Thank you for being on A Pint with Seaniebee. Let's go and have a pint now.
Thank you.